Even his ringtone's hot. Listen to that.
It's the same as anyone else.
It's so consistent.
Hello?
Oh, hey there. Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across from me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
Each week, we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners, just like Josh Gill, who's on the phone.
What?
What? That's right. I'm here on the phone.
This is crazy.
That's right. The first hardest working.
Third listener, period.
No, I was going to say first hardest working member of the podcast.
All two other listeners are going to be so upset.
Well, I know. Yeah, we're really going to cut down our...
only other third member ever.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah, see?
There has never been another...
I don't even know why we need to mention that.
Yeah. Gil is joining us because this is episode 100. It's the big hundo. I can't believe it. We made it. 100 episodes.
It's ridiculous.
You guys have been listening for 100 of these.
All less than 100 of you.
You poor fuckers. But Gil, yeah, I mean, we're so happy to have you on. Why don't we just
tell us how much you love us?
Yeah, why don't we start with like, when did you know that we were the best?
The Adam West tribute episode.
Holy shit.
Oh,
right off the bat.
Wow.
Right off the bat.
Adam West.
But yeah, so I mean, you've literally been like a day one like listener.
Yeah. I think I stumbled upon it right after y'all put up either the Adam West tribute episode or the Batman specific episode right afterwards.
He said y'all.
And I mean, that was what, episode 3 or 4?
Yeah. That's way back.
Listen to the first. Yeah, went back, listened to the first couple, been listening ever since.
Holy shit.
Okay, here's a question that I never get to ask anybody. How did you find us? Where were we that you found us?
You know, I was thinking about that yesterday. I think it was Reddit originally. I think I was poking around the DC Comics subreddit and came across a post about DC Comics podcast. And y'all were
real aggressive on there.
Listed, so I started listening.
That's awesome.
Holy shit. Yeah. All right. Well, we know you found us. You've been a staple of the podcast as like someone who writes in lots of questions, but also you do all of the amazing show notes on our episodes. You are like the sort of administrator of
the record keeper
of the doc phone and things like that. I mean, you're very much the third member of the podcast.
I feel like he's the yin to Super Todd's yang.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, for every file Super Todd drops to the floor, Josh picks one up. Yeah.
I mean, for every copier that Super Todd jams, somebody's got to come in and unjam that copy machine, right?
And you're kind of like our Superman.
Holy shit. We're dropping a lot of deep cut references here.
If on 100 episodes, we can't do that, then what's the point of even doing
the Superman photocopier might be from episode 1.
Is it? Oh my God, it might be.
That goes way, way, way back.
So why don't we talk a little bit about Josh's history with comics?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, have you always been a comic book person? Was it something that you came to like later on?
I've always been a DC superhero person. Growing up, I watched Batman the animated series, Batman Beyond, Justice League, all the animated cartoons that were out there. Watched all the DC animated movies as they came out, but never really got into comic books. It wasn't until college. I had a roommate that was really into comic books.
Okay, so you had a roommate that was super into comics, but
yeah,
what was that like transition like? Was that like daunting to like, we've talked about it a couple of times where it's like if you are kind of on the outside, like a comic book shop could be intimidating, right? Even going back to like the trope from The Simpsons and stuff like that. Was that intimidating for you?
No, for sure. No, it really wasn't. In the first couple graphic novels I read weren't even DC. I mean, blasphemy, right? But
Jacques.
I know. Well, one of them was. I mean, one of them was tangentially GC. After the first couple, he gave me Watchmen to read.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Talk about throwing somebody into the deep end right off the bat.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I read Watchmen, and I mean, at that point I was already kind of hooked, but I read Watchmen like, okay, I want to explore more of this, superhero world. And at that point I kind of jumped off on my own. And that was right around the time, right after Blackest Night and Brightest Day came out.
Right.
And so I went and I read went to the library, got the collected trades of Blackest Night and Brightest Day, and read those maybe before I got out of the library.
Wow.
And it was just hooked. And so then I went home and, Google was my friend. Did research on what would be good story arcs to read that you don't need a whole lot of background info to get into. Where are good jumping off points for different heroes that I was interested in. Like I said, I had a good background knowledge of who the different superheroes were just from growing up. And so I knew who I liked and who I wasn't really interested in. But that's kind of it. And then when New 52 launched, I just went full bore and started reading everything that DC was putting out. I'm like, this is a great opportunity to jump on.
Yeah.
And all the continuity is going to be reset. Everything's starting over. I don't need to know anything going into this.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
That was pretty much where I jumped back in, was right around the New 52. That's when I started collecting comics again and things like that. Was about the same time and for the same reason. Yeah. So now of the things now that you do pick up comics and things like that, what are some of the highlights on your pull list? What are things that you maybe have been reading the whole time or that you don't foresee dropping or stuff like that?
I have always pulled the Flash.
Boy.
That has been a staple since day one, is the Flash, and specifically Barry Allen.
Yeah.
He's cashing checks all over the state.
I've always been a Barry fan more than a Wally fan, personally.
Me too, actually.
So I've always pulled the Flash. Really? Why is that?
Well, I think it's because when I started reading comics, I was reading comics from the 60s and 70s when Barry was the Flash. And so that was what I grew up on. Even though the cartoon was Wally West, just to me, the Flash was Barry Allen. That was just kind of stuck in my head. And then, of course, because I came back in the New 52, that was all Barry, right? So, yeah, I think he's just always been my Flash. Yeah.
Okay. I dig it. What else do I pull? I've been pulling Action Comics pretty regularly for the last probably year. I've developed more of an appreciation for Superman over the last couple of years.
Yeah. What do you think of the Bendis run so far? We're only at, what is it, 1006 or 1007 or something? What do you think of his run on Action Comics?
I kind of like it. It reminds me of pre-Flashpoint Superman. Some of that stuff I've gone back and read since the New 52 started. It reminds me of that little bit lighter side of him.
Yeah.
When the New 52 came about and we had that prime continuity Superman, he was a little bit darker. He was a little bit younger, and
yeah, he was a bit rougher.
Immature,
he was a bit rougher around the edges.
Yeah. And so Bendis, I feel like, has done a pretty good job of kind of blending that roughness with that lightness from pre-Flashpoint. And I really dig it. I dig the story that's been going on. I'm excited to see where he takes it.
Yeah, totally.
And to be honest, I don't hate the red underwear.
Oh, no.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really had a particularly strong opinion on it. Although I will say that I do defend the New 52 kind of armor Superman look. I don't necessarily prefer it, but I don't hate it the way some people do. And I think it made sense. I think it fit. It didn't seem out of place to me. And I kind of like the collar, but yeah, I don't really.
No, for sure. And my favorite Superman outfit over the last couple of years has been not the New 52 one, but the one that came out of Superman Reborn.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was it was sort of blending the two. Yeah,
won that whole story arc and that whole panel splash panel was amazing.
Yeah.
But that costume that came out of it, I really dug.
Yeah, totally. Now Richard he's starting 2019 off by getting into some Flash comics.
Well, somebody made that very easy for me.
Yeah, we won't say who. So he's going to be getting into some Flash comics. If you had to make another recommendation, let's say from the Rebirth era for Richard, what would your other recommendation be?
Oh, Hellblazer.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Get some Constantine going.
That's, I mean, when you start talking, like Hellblazer, like, especially when you start talking like Vertigo, like,
yeah,
Hellblazer is what comes up every time, right?
Well,
like,
yeah, and I mean, since the New 52, Constantine's been folded into like the main DC continuity. He's not a Vertigo title anymore. He's just part of DC.
That's right.
And the New 52 run was like hit or miss, but the Rebirth one is pretty solid. It feels a bit more like the old Vertigo book.
Absolutely.
That's a good
does.
pick.
And it's not I don't feel like it's a stereotypical superhero story. So, I mean, it's appealing to that superheroes don't need a secret identity side.
Yeah.
And let's be real, Constantine is not that far from Supernatural.
Oh,
that
buddy.
is a very good point.
Oh, man after my own heart.
Easy.
I've got a heart on. I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ.
Jeez, I can't talk about it.
Keep that blanket on.
It just keeps raising higher and higher.
I know. How are you even doing that?
It's magic. Penis magic. Well, you know what? Before we start heading into the questions, I'd love to let's get a little self-indulgent, because that's why if the episode 100 is not for anything else, I think it's for a self-indulgency.
Sure, let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit about the last 100 episodes, because I think this is an important milestone, one that I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd ever get to, especially after episode 1.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fact that anyone stuck with us through some of those early episodes,
through some characters that may have existed.
Who? Yeah. I mean, it took us a while to find our footing and things like. Now, why don't we flip this a little bit, Josh? As someone that basically listened from the beginning, why did you stick with it?
Yes,
because even Richard and I listen to those episodes and go, "This is a shitty podcast."
Well, they're like, yeah, you really need to join at like 50. Episode 50 is usually where I start joining.
Yeah,
telling people.
I basically never recommend people listen earlier than episode 5.
Yeah, anything pre episode 70 has a element to it that I think would rather exist.
Who? So yeah, what was it that actually that didn't make you just drop the podcast?
The community aspect of it. I mean, it's not like, I don't know. It's, I don't know how to put this. It's like, at this point, it almost feels like talking to just the guys about comic books, which for me personally, I don't have really anybody else that is into comic books that I interact with on a regular basis. Sure. And so getting to throw those questions out and getting that interaction and hearing other people's questions and the viewpoints that, that those insinuate, and getting me thinking about different ways of looking at some of the superheroes and some of the themes that have come up. I really enjoy that. I mean, I don't get a whole lot of my nerd outlet, if you will, in everyday life. And so this has been a way to satisfy that.
Right. There's not a lot of people reading Green Lantern at the gym.
Surprisingly, no.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, no, I mean, that's kind of nice to hear, because that was the point. That was the idea, was to
have we talked about what the initial point was?
We did in the annual, but for those that didn't listen then, or who have just jumped on since, yeah, my initial pitch to Richard was to do a podcast where I would just for an hour talk about a subject. And Richard very wisely, I mean, he didn't say this like this, but he very wisely basically was like, "That's a bad idea. You could take questions." and I was like, "I don't know.
I got a lot to say. I don't know."
I'm so happy that we went that way, that we went with the questions. What a dry, horrible idea I had.
No, but it's true though. Like the idea was, once we actually got going, was to create a community. I mean, that's the most important part of this. Also to feed my comedic ego, but beyond that, it's to specifically engage with a community and create somewhere where, one, I think we try to be pretty inclusive and diverse when we talk about the subject matters that we do, but also creating somewhere that is all about positivity when it comes to talking about the things you love. Now, we can hate on things, and we'll hate on things hard, but we do so.
Hey, Richard, what did you think of Suicide Squad?
Literally, we'll do an entire episode about my fucking hatred of that thing. Don't get me started.
Right.
But I think what the idea was to create this sort of positive community where we can all complain and be excited about the things that we like and give multiple different viewpoints about a subject matter, which is, I think, what you and I not often meet in the middle about things. We generally have different opinions about things.
Actually, yeah.
Which I hope gives this podcast some sort of balance. But
I mean, to Gil's point, I kind of feel the same way though. Like, I mean, I do have some people like in my real life that enjoy talking comic books with me, but this is also like, this is my time once a week to like really let the geek out. You know, at home, if I'm like flipping through like comic book news and then I turn to my wife and I go like, oh my God, you're never going to believe what just happened in the Parliament of Trees. Like, my wife will just be like, okay, I'm like raising our child. Can you just... So, like, this podcast is also my opportunity for that. So I actually feel the same way that Josh does, where it's like, I enjoy that we have people that ask questions every week. I enjoy when we get people just kind of bombing in, or people say
who have been listening for a really long time and then finally ask a question after they've been listening for, that's my favorite.
Or people just kind of like, I just listened, now I have a question about the thing you just talked about. Like, we've get sort of all sorts of things. I really do like that. I'm kind of, yeah, I mean, I'm sort of impressed that we've managed to find our kind of
that we haven't
community
been, and we haven't been kicked off the internet. And
yeah, we haven't just been like universally banned from online.
Yes, they didn't set like make an example of us, and we're like, no more of anything like this.
Yeah. So, I've got something.
Yeah.
If do each of us have like a particular moment or bit or episode that stands out as like a highlight in the past 100?
I'll go first because
Sure.
I think that my favorite thing has been one. I really come here for the comedy, but
I know
our burgeoning improv skills. I think.
Yeah, burgeoning's the right word.
Yeah, why not? Right? That's a word that's appropriate, right?
Yeah.
Look at it. See, I got smarts. So for me, what I enjoyed was like finding that sort of thing between us that we actually have the ability to do that, and the Alfred stuff is. I think it's funny because it started as like I'm wondering what the first episode was that we started that.
I think it's 80.
Is it?
I think it's episode 80.
Is it that far off? Because I feel like we've been doing it forever.
Well,
but
we had done a Michael Caine impression way earlier.
Yeah.
But the like evil Alfred thing started in episode 80.
Did it? Yeah.
The thing where he was killing the Waynes.
It's just like, but I thought like seeing the growth of the sort of improv parts and stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Josh, what about you?
I think the Grant Morrison episode.
Oh, yeah.
You almost did it. Do it for old time's sake, Richard.
That's why.
Morrison!
There you go.
That is 100% why, because I mean, Richard, he didn't want to do it. You can tell. But it turned out to be a great episode, a great interview. There were a lot of good stuff that came out of it, and all without really diving into the big Morrison things that he's done.
That's true. It was such like a shallow dive.
Fucking Kyle Clark.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Final Crisis was, I think, mentioned, but not really explored a whole lot.
Yeah,
so I just thought it was a really good exploration of Grant Morrison's kind of secondary stuff.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's a good one. Oh God, I guess I have to participate in this too.
Yeah. This is your podcast at the end of the day.
I think there's a couple of things I remember. I don't necessarily remember what episodes they're from, but I really like when we get some questions that sort of like they invoke a bit of creativity. Like they're questions that don't necessarily have an explicit answer in the comics, right? We got one relatively early on, maybe in episode 7, about Phantom Stranger and whether or not he could like move between worlds. it's like not a thing that has like an explicit answer, but it got to kind of like be like, oh, if he gets his power from this part of the multiverse, then it must make sense that he could then move between this other part of the multiverse. Like, you get to sort of invoke your creativity. Or when we did like the Fight Night episode, like who would beat whom, and we got to sort of talk about like what is everyone bringing to the table, or you know, when we get questions about like even like sort of silly ones like who would be good roommates, or like all of that kind of shit. I like when we get to sort of, I guess in the same way of us sort of developing our sort of improv riffing skills, I like when we get to sort of see where something goes, as opposed to just saying this is how it is.
Exactly.
Not that I don't like answering those questions too, but there's something, it's a fun exercise to sort of like step out of the box and kind of just have some fun with these characters, because that's sort of the point, right? There's
but
like
I mean,
80 years of fictional universe. If you're not having fun with it, then like why are we doing it?
I think that's something that we try to do with the podcast. I'd be curious what Josh's thoughts are on this. I mean, we've tried a lot of little experimental things as we kind of go through with like, I mean, we try to do the focus on San Diego Comic-Con every year. We've Docmas. We did that Fight Night. We did October. We've done October. The games.
Other things we've stolen from this.
Josh, is there any sort of like weird thing that we've done that you wish we would bring back, or if there's something that you would love to focus on that sort of that has happened maybe once or twice, or
Oh man, you know, I did think the live show at Comic-Con that y'all did pretty early on, I thought that was really dope. Which I think you mentioned there might be something coming in.
I do like that he just said blanket Comic-Con. It makes it sound like it could be, you know.
Oh yeah, we were at San Diego.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, I was going to let y'all run with it.
I appreciate it.
Hall H, baby.
Yeah.
But no, you know, I think a San Diego or New York Comic-Con fallout is always fun. Just getting to recap all the big news, because there's a lot that comes out of those.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
You know, we can't all sit there and follow the news every single day. And so having somebody that can dissect it and say, okay, here's what's important and here's why.
Yeah.
You know, I thought Doctober was really cool. Just the idea of kind of having an overarching theme for the whole month. How that could play out with other months, I don't know, or doing series kind of like that, where maybe you do like 3 or 4 episodes in a row that all touch on an overarching topic.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot June is Fanagar.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
We also have Fanagar.
God, we sure like to come up with concepts.
Yeah. We're good at puns.
Yeah, that's really the antithesis for this entire podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, fuck. It's a bit of like a personal dream of mine to actually get to San Diego Comic-Con.
I mean,
I've never lived closer than I do now. I'm at least
true.
I'm at least on the West Coast.
Yeah, we're in the same time zone.
Yeah, which I've never been closer to it, but I'm still relatively far because we're like almost at the Arctic Circle.
Oh, you know what? I've got a question for Josh.
Sure.
Josh, is there a theme that we haven't done yet that you would love for us to do?
Yeah.
Ooh. You know, one that actually, I don't remember where, it was coming out of reading Mr. Miracle, talking about sidekicks and supporting characters.
Sure.
You know, like you have Oberon, you have Alfred, you have Gordon, you have Andy, you have Jimmy Olsen, like all the supporting cast.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, the thing that's interesting about a supporting character is that they're the lead of their own story.
Yes, a story that might come to some sort of conclusion with a large death or
a story.
A man inside leather.
About a man molding a young child into the perfect physique to fit the suit that he built 20 years earlier.
To that child to then mold itself to become a warrior inside of a suit.
He's back, baby.
Really? You're doing that a lot now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm into it.
Have you been listening to Blank Check or something?
I've been listening to a lot of CBB.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
But yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. A sidekick, like supporting cast sort of episode would be awesome. Especially because there's like some people, you know, Batman is so widely known. Lots of people know the supporting cast. Same with Superman too. You got like Perry White and Jimmy Olsen and these kind of characters. It'd be cool to like get people interested in the supporting casts of some other characters too, right?
For sure.
Let's do a whole episode about Vulko.
Hosted by Supercharged.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no.
That's right. 2 against 1.
Oh no, I don't like these odds. I think like I'm just looking through like all the episode titles and stuff right now, just to kind of reminisce a little bit. And it's interesting. Like we've really gotten through, I think, a lot of subject matter, and yet I constantly feel like there's so much more ahead of us.
Well, that's the thing too. We've done some very like broad episodes, and usually what happens is we barely get into it when it's a broad topic, like, you know, serial killers or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we've done some episodes on a particular character. And even then, even when we like dissect, you know, Zatanna or something like that, we go sort of into those things. I mean, Zatanna's been around for a long time. There's no way in 2 hours that we're going to cover everything there is to know about Zatanna or every appearance or something like that. So I think part of what I like about that too, about this idea of taking questions from people, that's a better idea than the original one that I had, is that like it's sort of inexhaustible. You know, there's always new stories. There's always more to talk about. There's always some other angle to come at it from, right? So I kind of like it that way.
I think too. I mean, hopefully, considering we're not diving in that deep into things, I think we do give the broad strokes for a lot of these concepts and characters.
Yeah.
Josh, do you think that? I mean, I think that one of the concepts we try to do is that we try to educate people on some of these characters. Do you feel like you've learned anything about characters that maybe you haven't read about?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know just, you know, doing the show notes, diving into some of the characters that you, for instance, I honestly didn't know until just an episode or two ago that it wasn't Black Manta that cut Aquaman's hand off.
Right. In the 90s.
I mean, I thought Black Manta did that. And so learning about this other villain, I ended up going deep and learning a lot more about him than just that he cut Aquaman's hand off.
Yeah, totally. Richard.
Yeah.
What's something that you feel like, is there like a particular character or thing that you feel like you've really learned a lot about, like since we started doing the podcast? I mean, you sort of had some general comic book awareness and knowledge, but is there like a standout one where you're like, I didn't know very much about this one at all, and now I get it?
I think for me, coming into this podcast, I think I was the type of person who I hope listens to this podcast, which is somebody who has a tangential sort of knowledge and connection to comic books through multiple sources of media, but hasn't necessarily dived in. So I've read a bit of a lot of different companies, like a lot of different comic book providers stuff. I was a Walking Dead fan.
Sure,
I read a lot of Vertigo, DC, Marvel. I have a sort of broad sense of knowledge over all of it, I think, but no real deep diving knowledge into any of it. So for me, what I enjoyed was one, I got to sort of explore what about DC that I really enjoyed, because I think for a long time I saw DC and Marvels as two entities, but didn't really understand what made each of them unique.
Right.
So for me, one of the biggest things was just understanding DC itself and understanding what makes it unique and what separates it from Marvel. That for a long time, I think, and people who don't read a lot of either of them might just see them as two of the same thing, just with different names, when they're actually very, very different with the types of material that they put out. And I think that's pretty intentional, which I think actually works to the betterment of either of them, to be really. But I think character wise, one, I think I obviously have a new appreciation for Aquaman.
Yeah, totally.
But understanding characters like Ragman, which I never had, and like
the big dark horse of the podcast. Yeah.
Yes. For me, like understanding that Booster Gold, which is a character that I've become a huge fan of, and I try to bring up as often as I can. I think like Blue Beetle, Booster Gold. I think there's so many characters that I had no understanding of, like understanding the realms and the multiverse. I feel like there's an entirety of depth that I've gotten rather than just even from one character.
Sure,
I feel like I've become a DC fan and a big comic book fan in general because of this podcast. It was something that I always enjoyed, but it was sort of at a distance. And now really being able to see sort of the history of it and where it's come, I'm now starting to actually dive in and figure out what's important to me and what I want to read moving forward.
Well, but now you've got a couple of Flash graphic novels.
I do.
You just this past year rewatched all of the Flash. You're totally caught up. So I mean, you're really in Flash mode too.
I'm currently in the Speed Force.
Yeah, say hi to Colin.
Yeah, who? What? I really have. I've learned to love the Flash, I think, more than a lot of other characters, and I've become really interested in characters like Green Lantern. I think that Earth 1 issue really sparked my interest.
You liked that one,
but I think the problem is like that's the sort of like pinnacle for me, and I'm worried that. That's so different than a lot of Green Lantern. I don't know what to even go to next. I think Aquaman is really interesting because there's so many very distinct chunks of history with Aquaman that you can really decide what sounds interesting and then just sort of dive into that.
And the movie kind of got you more interested in that too.
Oh yeah, I mean #the wetter the better. I mean this is the year of Aquaman for me.
#put the dog down.
Yeah. Oh fuck. #put the dog down. Indeed. I think that I always had a love, obviously, for Batman and for Superman. I think that love has just become more prevalent and more aware to me. Yeah. As we've done that, but for me, I think the reality is it's DC as a whole has become. I've become a DC. A fanboy, I think, which was not something I was when I came into that. I think, if anything, your biggest accomplishment, I think, is like I'm on the other side of the line. I'm with Peter Pan. I left Rufio. I've chosen my side, and what
a weird callback.
But I would put the question to you, which is one that I'm really interested in, because I think that you've had this deep knowledge, and this whole thing is surrounding around the depth of your knowledge of DC.
Sure.
But in doing this, have you rediscovered a love for different characters, or has it changed your opinion of DC in any sort of way since starting this?
I mean, I think it reminds me every week that there are things that I forget about. I mean, there are some things so obscure I've either never encountered them or rarely encountered them.
Yeah.
And there are other things that are not even that obscure, but they're because they're not on my pull list or because they haven't been referenced in a long time because continuities go in and out.
Yeah.
There are whole like swaths of the continuity that I sort of just forget about until someone asks a question and I go like, oh shit, yeah, like we got a question in our History of the Hawks episode about Silver Scarab and Fury, and that whole like Infinity Inc. thing, you know, like the children of some of the like Justice Society heroes and stuff like that. Like that's one that I often just passingly forget about because it's not really been a continuity thing for quite some time now. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that I like is it forces me to like revisit or rediscover things. Like this past year, I got really into Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld, who I always knew was a thing, but I'm like really reading the comics now. Like, holy shit, like there's like a whole bunch of shit in there. Like Gemworld is its own sort of big like doors open thing like Scartaris or like any of those other kind of realms like New Genesis or whatever. It's like you're discovering like a whole cast of characters and a place and powers and all these different things. So I also I think get something out of this other than just like yelling into the void.
There's a lot of that, but you know what? Well, I mean, we're getting deep into this, and we haven't even started the news.
Sure,
but before we hit that, we've got a review, and I figured I would.
We've got a
review, so I figured let's not skip over it because we haven't had a review in a while.
Sure.
Sent to us by Weezeworks on iTunes with a 5-star review. They go on to say, "This." I may have to cut this out actually, but we'll see. Has anyone else told Richard that he revealed a rad phone number during the Docmus drunk dial?
Did you actually?
Yes, I deleted it after. I had to go back after it had been posted.
You said it out loud?
Yeah, I didn't even know I did.
I don't even remember you saying a phone number.
Me either, but I totally revealed somebody's phone number. But I removed it after, so if you're listening to this, it's already gone. Or you heard it already, you wrote it down, and I'm fucked either way. But please, if you have this phone number, do not call. Do not text. Do not take advantage of my drunkenness because it won't be good.
Jesus.
He goes on to say after that, he says, anyways, as someone who is also has a near encyclopedic knowledge of DC, it's nice to know that I'm not alone. If you're if you're a DC fanboy, hump on the Dr. DC podcast. I was trying to type jump and it autocorrect happened. Hump is funnier at Weezeworks.
Thank you, Weezeworks.
That's really funny.
Yeah, hump on this podcast.
Yeah. Hump it real good.
Well, I mean, we've finally got Josh on, so
speaking of humping, yeah. You know what?
Stop it.
I'm so sorry.
It's never going to stop. You should have known.
So sorry. Oh, sorry. Just before we get into news, I have one last question for Josh, which is, Josh, we've mentioned it. You very famously are a gym guy. You work out. I assume you know sort of the ins and outs. What's the secret to getting like the upside down triangle of a Henry Cavill type?
Do you want the PC answer or the legit answer?
Legit.
Let's do it.
This has never been a PC podcast.
Steroids.
Really? Like legitimate steroids, not just like creatine and stuff like that?
No, so you can do it. It takes a long time. I mean, that's it. It's time. It's dedication. It's eating right. It's exercising right.
Right. If you had to pick like a flavor of potato chip that would get me closest, what would it be?
Terra.
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably
plain.
Imaginary. Like
they're cool.
Chip?
Right.
Yeah.
I'll look for that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, to my wife, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but apparently I can't get there by chips, and therefore it's not going to happen.
You're constantly apologizing for not being able to get there with your wife. I apologize.
Let's get to that question.
News. Well, this first piece of news, speaking of Aquaman, I think that it's worth talking about that Aquaman has officially hit the $1 billion mark internationally.
#1 billion.
Oh my God. How have I not heard of this yet?
Yeah, it's been all over Twitter.
Really? Oh, man.
It's hit 1 billion. Man.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Gil, I mean, I know you've seen Aquaman. How many times have you seen it?
Twice.
Nice.
There you go. Nice.
I
too have seen it twice.
Well, I mean, I had to go back and make sure I saw all of it because I spent the first time probably grinning like a moron in this parts of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I had to go back and actually, watch it and make sure I caught everything.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's the right way to do it. I saw it the day before I saw it with Richard. So I've I went with my wife, and that was my grinning like an idiot day. And then I went with Richard with a real critical eye.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then talked about how much I loved it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so Josh, what's your speed review of that movie? What's your thoughts on it?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I really did. It's no Justice League.
But no.
Throwing the gauntlet down.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're breaking up. We're losing you.
No, I thought it was amazing. I thought the costume design was on point. I thought the characters were great. I absolutely loved the portrayal of Mira's aquakinetic ability with the wine. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, her pulling the wine out of the bottles and using it as daggers. I love that. I mean, did I cheer a little bit when he was riding the seahorse? Maybe.
Totally. I love that there's almost
like a schoolgirl when he walked out in the armor.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I love that there seemed to be a deliberate attempt by that movie to take iconic images of Aquaman being silly and making them Aquaman being sexy and badass.
It's true.
And the seahorse is one of them. Oh, you think this is funny?
We're going to make it awesome and hot.
Yeah. Now you're hard.
Speaking of uncorking wine bottles and turning them into a dagger, usually when I uncork a bottle of wine, my words turn into daggers.
Jesus.
Yeah, we clearly love this movie.
Yeah.
Josh, is it your number one?
Ooh, top 4.
Whoa.
That's good. What are the top 3?
So I say top 4 because I don't know that I could rank the top 4. They're all just kind of right there.
Okay, but in no particular order, what are those 4?
And they better not be Justice League.
So help me God if one of them is Justice League.
Okay. Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
Aquaman,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Wow.
Hate all you want. It's my favorite of the 3 of them.
Interesting.
Wow.
All right.
Number 4?
Ooh. 1989 Batman.
That's a good pick.
Wow.
That's a decent top 4.
It's fun. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
very different than ours, but
It
very
is,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
I don't have like outrageous angry commentary at any of that.
No, not at all. Well, speaking of Aquaman, there was another piece of information that I just thought was interesting was James Wan has gone out and said that Aquaman's VFX snub is a fucking disgrace.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like this is him just standing up for, there's lots of people that work very hard on any movie, right? So, obviously Aquaman is VFX heavy. They did a lot of work on designing new worlds and making the underwater stuff look fluid and good and natural and stuff like that. So I think that's his way of, showing his support and appreciation for how much work went into making that movie. That's in a way that's him saying like, I'm not the one that got it to $1 billion single-handedly, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's everyone's the cast, it's the crew, it's the VFX artists, it's all that. But I think I probably would have expected a VFX one, especially because Black Panther got one.
Right?
I think I would have thought Aquaman would get one, but I mean, whatever. The Oscars are what they are, but yeah, I think that's just sort of James Wan acknowledging how many people put so much work into making that movie as good as it was, right?
Totally.
So,
well, since we have Josh Gill on the line, I figured we couldn't not talk about The Flash.
Yeah.
One of the pieces of news that has come up, which I thought was really interesting, was I don't know if you've actually even realized it, but this current season that we're in right now, we haven't gotten a lot of Papa Joe. No.
We talked about this, didn't we?
I don't know, but so he's been sitting down in a lot of these scenes, and apparently it ended up being because he had this back problem.
Yeah.
But apparently in the next coming episodes, Papa Joe's back.
Yeah.
First of all, he's feeling good.
There was like an Instagram video or something of like Candace Patton and the woman that plays Cecile.
Yeah.
And then it pans over and Joe West is there. So,
have you noticed this loss of Joe West, Josh?
Yeah, so I noticed that if he wasn't sitting, he was either leaning on something. But I did see it's the 15th episode that he comes back.
Yeah, he's coming back, and apparently they're going to be using a story reason to explain what
like where he's been.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
They're actually going to include it. Apparently, there's going to be a little bit of information that comes when he first comes back, but then later on, apparently, there's going to be a bigger reason that gets unfolded.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting that their like season arc is flexible enough to account for something that they couldn't have planned for.
Considering like how like big these stories can be, it's impressive that they're able to sort of bounce around with these. Josh, have you been enjoying it this season as much as we have been?
Oh yeah, this is probably since the first season or two. This has been the best season.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I mean, it feels like they got back to kind of like what I was saying about Superman earlier. It feels like it got back to that happiness, that light and joy, and the fun that he has when he's running.
I think Nora West is included into that. I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of this season, and it's like I mean, I guess season 4 and 3 were obviously like this too because it includes speedsters and crazy powers and whatever. But it feels more comic booky this season.
Yeah.
The season 3 and 4 felt like they were trying to be Arrow with powers. And this season just feels like it's like, no, like this is a comic book.
They know what makes Flash Flash at this point, which is something that I think they've been sort of figuring out as they've been going along. And I'm happy that they've sort of come to this conclusion. And hopefully, fingers crossed that we get Flash Museum.
I would love to see the Flash Museum.
Oh,
I'd be down.
Right? Oh man, it'd be so rad. All right, well, let's head on to the next piece of news. So I think we've heard little bits of it, but we've actually got an official Superman Red Sun animated movie announcement and casting.
Yeah, it's coming. Superman Red Sun is one of my all-time favorite, like, sort of Elseworld stories. It's really beautifully done. I hope, and we talked about this a little bit as we were talking about the Long Halloween animated movie that they're going to make. I hope the art style remains. Like, I hope it's one of those ones that's sort of true to how the comic book looks, as opposed to just being like just a generic sort of animation style. I hope it's deliberately meant to look like it's bringing the book
like
to
I
life.
don't want it to look like the Death of Superman. Like that's not the style that I want.
Yeah, exactly. Gil, have you read Red Sun? Like, what are your thoughts?
That was actually my first Superman story I ever read.
Ooh, wow, good first story.
Yeah, it actually is a good first story. Yeah.
And I thought it was, I mean, it's still one that I keep and will reread. And you're right, I mean, if they do it, they've got to stick with that and Soviet art style that runs throughout it. And I think if they, I'm really excited for this. I kind of peeked ahead at some of the casting that they did, and I'm excited. I think this is going to be really good.
What is some of the casting? I'm not sure that I actually have seen that.
I thought I saw a list that was talking about some of the voice casting that was going on with it, and it's going back to some of the older voice actors that they used to use.
Oh, really? Like George Newbern or something like that? Like, is he Superman?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but like I said, the voice cast that I thought I saw was on point.
And then we're getting a lot of the sort of regular hits too, like Tara Strong's going to be in it.
Sure.
Who's obviously known as doing Harley Quinn and
Harley
Raven.
and Raven, yeah.
I think that's good. We're getting Jason Isaac.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Who's he playing? Is he Batman? Oh my God, is he Soviet Batman?
It doesn't say. I'm just, this thing that I'm looking at right now, at least just is kind of giving some of the names. Travis Willingham, who's been in a various of the Lego DC projects.
Sure.
Big names attached. Phil Lamar.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Phil Morris and Vanessa Marshall.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're getting some interesting names. So I think that this isn't just... I think they've been kind of throwing out a lot of these DC animated movies lately, and I think they've had some decent names and they've been great projects. But it seems like this one's special to someone because they seem to be putting an extra care in it. So I'm really stoked for it. I think this is going to be a really good.
I really like these ones where they adapt like the Elseworlds sort of things. Like I like Dark Knight Returns. I liked Gotham by Gaslight. I like these ones where
they're honestly my favorite. I'll watch the shows if I want to get the regular stuff because they throw in a lot of the comic book arcs in there anyways.
Totally.
But this is where you get some of the really more interesting stories, and it's an opportunity to do that without having it being attached to anything else, right? So same thing with the comics, obviously. So I like it. I hope they do more of it. So the last piece of news that we're doing today, which I don't believe we've talked about, but you could correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
The Shazam movie is going to feature the 7 Deadly Sins.
Yes. So in addition to Dr. Savannah, played by
Dr. Savannah.
No.
Got a Manjula for that Dr. Savannah.
Not the wealthy southern landowner.
Come here, boy.
No. Oh, jeez. Of all the characters to bring
Shazam,
back.
why'd you come over here right now?
Wasn't part of the original bit that like Shazam was the name of a drink? Like,
why
don't you come on over, make me a Shazam?
That's Bing bobbity bam, daddy needs a Shazam.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Savannah. They will also feature the 7 deadly sins, or what are they called? Like the 7 enemies of man.
Yeah.
So, sloth, envy, greed, lust, Wrath.
Other.
I'm clearly not religious enough. And the other two.
Yes. The ugly one.
Yeah.
What's her face? Josh, are you excited for Shazam? As much as we are, at least?
Yes. Like every time I see any pictures of Zachary Levi in the costume, I just kind of squeal a little bit.
Were you a fan of Chuck? Did you watch Chuck?
Oh, I love Chuck.
Yeah, so you get it.
Oh my god.
You get why he's perfect for this role.
What about Tangled?
Shut up.
What
What's
he was Flynn Rider in Tangled.
Yeah, I know, but that has nothing to do with this. Chuck is a
You
direct
brought it up
correlation
on
to
a
Shazam.
previous episode. So
You know what else I brought up in the previous episode?
nope.
I didn't realize that Mrs. DC had showed up and was going to start talking Disney.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't work with our history.
Well, I throw the odd Disney reference in so that she'll keep listening.
You mean she occasionally
It's like,
catches
ooh,
up.
piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy.
And then she goes, hey, wait a minute, he's talking shit about me here.
And then be like, oh, this reminds me of the time that Esmeralda.
Just keep reeling her in.
Now, after watching Aquaman, Richard said to me that he was like way more excited about Shazam because he felt like the direction that the films were taking encouraged him. Do you feel the same way, Josh?
Oh yeah, and I mean, coming off of Wonder Woman and then Aquaman, they are getting lighter and they're embracing some of the more humorous side of things. And with Shazam, I mean, that's perfect. It's a perfect vehicle for that because he's a kid.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. The jokes that can come out of that, but to a point that y'all were making, I can't remember, maybe an episode or two back, you know, the jokes are going to be fine, but I feel like they could lose it if they go super juvenile with some of them.
Yeah. And I mean, I actually felt that Aquaman actually had a really good balance. It didn't feel overly jokey, but it was not shying away from the things that are like patently ridiculous or whatever about comic books or about the situations that they're in. And yeah, hopefully, I mean, I think without a doubt, Shazam will be funnier than Aquaman, but I'm hoping there's still a balance. Like I don't want it to be like a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 kind of situation.
Yeah, make it Volume 1.
Volume 1, I could get behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Could get behind Chris Pratt.
Okay. All right. Come on.
He's really the Josh Gill of Marvel Comics.
It's the Josh Gill of the Guardians. You can't objectify him when he's on the show.
If I can't do it when he's on here, when can I?
When he's not on here.
Why? Then I could say it to his face.
There's 99 episodes where he's not on.
And every single one, I think I objectify him. Well, I mean, you mentioned 99. This week's theme, 100.
Yes, the theme is 100.
The 100th episode.
The theme is just that we're still on the air.
Yeah, this theme is actually that CW TV series 100.
No, it's Tobias Whale in the 100.
Oh, God, no. I told you, Doctor, that
our theme is 100, Jefferson.
Fucking. I hate him so much. Oh, my God.
Well, we have something very special. We've got a bunch of questions. They're sort of general DC questions, but they have all been submitted by past guests of the show via the doc phone.
For the most part, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So let's hit the first one and see what we've got.
All right.
Hi, congratulations on making it to 100 episodes. I was wondering if Amalgam Comics was suddenly relaunched and you guys had the opportunity to create your own original run, what would it be? Okay, have a great day. Bye.
So that was Alex the Boy.
That was Alex the Boy, who first showed up in our first round of Docmas and then also was on our DCAU episode.
That's right.
That's an awesome question.
Amalgam Comics.
Amalgam Comics. So this is where DC and Marvel universes are merged together.
Do you know of this at all, Josh?
Oh, yeah. Was it Dark Claw, right?
Yeah, that's Logan Wayne. Yeah, that's right. So let's imagine that we don't have to adhere to the fact that some of these characters already exist. Let's say it's a new amalgam universe. What is like a Marvel character and a DC character that you want to squish together? What are they called? Like, what's their deal? If you need some time, I'll just throw this to Richard and make him do one on the spot.
Yeah, let's put Richard on the spot.
All right, Richard.
So what am I doing?
So a DC character,
Yeah.
a Marvel character, you have to merge them together. Like, imagine you're squishing their continuities and histories into one.
Ooh.
What you end up with? Who do you want to see?
Okay, well, I mean, a very easy one, obviously, is like Quicksilver in the Flash, but
Sure.
that's a cop out, so I'm not going to do that. I think that's
Good.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
What I would love to see is an Iron Man.
Okay.
And we take the Iron Man,
Yeah.
and then we take a Batman,
Sure.
and you put those together. I like to bring the ones who are similar characters.
Sure. So what would you call them?
I call him Iron Bat.
Sure.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
So I think that one of the
So
big...
what's his name? Like Tony Wayne or like Bruce Stark?
No, it's Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks. His name is Garth Brooks.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I think that one of the only downfalls with Batman, in a lot of the continuity, he's not the tech genius. Somebody else is. Lucius Fox is.
Certainly in movies and things like that, they downplay his scientific ability.
He's not the one who generally creates the equipment. Somebody else does.
Sure.
Whether it's Alfred, whether it's Lucius Fox, whether it's blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
So I would love to give him the genius of Tony Stark, but then he already has the detective skills. I think that would make him this like unstoppable force.
Would you also
more
give
than
him,
he already is?
Would you also give him Tony's alcoholism?
I think Bruce Wayne already has that.
Would it be a thing where like like with Iron Man where he has to be the Batman because like there's something in the suit that keeps him alive, or is there anything like that?
I like that. Yeah,
that's already a thing with Batman, is that he's not great at knowing like where the dividing line is between like Batman and Bruce Wayne. Like, would you make that a physical thing? Like,
you know, what might be interesting too is that maybe his father was a Batman and it was a better Batman. And so he's trying to be the Batman and continue the storyline, but like is having to compete with the legacy that was his father.
I like it. Iron Bat. All right.
Ooh, yeah, I'm into that.
Gil, do you have one?
So one that I just think would be hysterical, and
I like this.
I would love to see how they could figure it out. The Blob and the Flash.
Oh no. I'm picturing that Silver Age Flash cover where he's like, "Oh no, I'm getting fatter." That's a real thing.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so how would you put
just
them together? How would their powers complement each other? Or
see, that's the hard part, because the Blob, he's immovable.
Right.
A fast moving piece of goo.
So I mean, like,
how could
no? So like he moves super fast, but when he chooses not to, he can't be moved. Is basically the idea.
Yeah.
Maybe he's so fast it looks like he's not moving.
Oh shit! He's literally in every place at once.
Yeah.
Interesting. The Flash and the Blob. Do you have a name for him?
The Flob.
No.
The Flob is pretty good.
I'm just saying.
It's better than I want it to be.
It's not the first time I've heard that.
Holy shit! Okay, interesting.
The one that I was really kind of playing around with, though, trying to come up with a better story for, is Iron Fist and Deadman.
Oh, okay.
You know, combining those two together, you know, it's very similar backstory, going off and training in the mythical city. Whereas when Iron Fist goes to fight the dragon, instead of winning, he dies.
Oh.
And so he's been trained to be the Iron Fist, but now he has that ghost power of Deadman.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and that tied to sort of like Eastern religions and things like that. That's a really interesting one. I like that. Do you have a name for this amalgam of Iron Fist and Deadman?
Dead Fist.
Nice. Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Frankly, in the amalgam universe, that's pretty good. In the amalgam universe, that's pretty good. So, oh shit, it's my turn now. Okay. I think, it's kind of tough. I think maybe like Green Lantern and Cyclops. So instead of firing just the concussive blast, he's actually like the will of the universe is sort of like channeled through him, and he can make constructs out of his like I beam. But he kind of can't stop it, so that's why he has to wear like the goggles or whatever. But yeah, I guess I don't know what I would call him, like the green monocle or something like that. But I think putting those two together, where like, yeah, instead of just being a concussive blast, he's actually like channeling the willpower and imagination of like the universe through his eyes.
Professor Farts.
Professor Farts?
Yeah. That's it. Nailed it.
That's so good.
Concussive blast, if you know what I mean.
Jesus.
All right. Well, with that, let's go to the next question.
All right.
And I'm just pulling it up.
Do we know who it's from?
Well, you have to wait and listen.
All right.
Hey there, guys. It's Mrs. and Baby DC calling. We have 2 questions for you today. Our first one is, how would you rank the Justice League? Like the members of the Justice League. Who would be your number 1 most useful, and rank them through to the bottom? And then our second question is, if you could replace one member of the Justice League with any other DC character, who would you choose to replace and why? Lots of love, guys. Have a great day.
It's weird that your daughter already has very specific opinions about the Justice League.
Well, yeah, just spoken through her interpreter, my wife.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, she said we, so
yeah, thank
half
you.
the questions are
Thank
from
you for
your daughter,
setting that. Yeah, I mean, let's take like any sort of generic sort of 7-member roster of the Justice League. How do you rank them from like best / most useful to like why are you here?
Yeah.
Josh, did you want to go?
Just ranking 7 from useful to worthless.
Yeah.
I mean, most useful is always going to be Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick.
I mean, he's as strong as Superman. He can fly. The telepathic link, he's intangible. I mean, most useful. Duh. And he's a detective. What?
Yeah. No.
Covers like half the Justice League right there.
That's true.
7. Okay, so after that, going off the current Justice League lineup, probably Hot Girl's most useless, I think.
Oh, okay.
Based on the current based on the current lineup, you know, I don't see her use. I don't see how she really contributes in a way that nobody else is covering. You know, after Jean, probably Superman.
Right.
Again, strong. I would say Batman for his detective skills is next. Batman and Wonder Woman kind of right there. His detective skills, her combat, and what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, she's sort of tactical.
Yeah. Her tactical genius. You know, those are going to be very interchangeable. Cyborg is probably next, because with Martian Manhunter back, what made Cyborg really beneficial to the team, Jean is kind of taken care of on his own.
Yeah, instead of being tapped into all the tech, John can use his telepathy.
Right. So that put me at 5, 6. And I guess, yeah, the Flash would be next, right?
Wow, so low on your list.
Yeah, but I'm okay with that. You know, I am fine with him not being the most valuable member of the team, but when it comes to certain things, I think he would very much prove his merit.
Right.
You know, he's an incredible detective. He's super smart. The speed is going to be invaluable in a lot of different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As they have seen, and you know, how many world altering stories have come up where it's been the Flash that has been the one to save the day.
Yeah. This is also one of those things where we're ranking best to worst of the best, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
everyone's good.
Yeah.
They all get a gold star, but
but who sucks?
I mean, we could rank Justice League Antarctica, but
then it's all
Big Sur, Gnort, Major Disaster.
Gnort's obviously the best. So I'll do mine. I'm going to go with the movies Justice League.
Okay.
So for me, number one is Superman.
My 18th best DC movie.
Shut up. Superman's number one.
Yeah.
He's the strongest. He's the fastest. Second fastest under the Flash, but he's very, very fast.
Yep.
I think that like when he shows up in the movie, it's now the fight can be over because Superman shows up.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's the leader of the Justice League, I think. Yeah. Batman is my number two. Obviously, the intellect that is unmatched within the group. His tactic ability, his technology, his understanding of whatever opponent he comes up against. I think that is invaluable. He can very quickly understand what the weaknesses are and use that to his advantage because he doesn't have a power. He has to just work within the means of his intellect a lot of the time and his physical prowess. So I think he's number two. Number three for me, I think is the Flash. He's got that pure speed. He's got the detective ability, the intellect, the science. I think that's invaluable. Something that can always be used. I think then for me, it's Cyborg.
Right.
I mean, technology comes up constantly when you're fighting villains. It's a thing that's around us all the time, so it's something that can be very easily utilized. Definitely want that around. Then I would say it's Aquaman.
Okay.
You have to wait for water to show up, but he can occasionally jump out of planes and yell "my man" and jump into things and
my man.
Yeah, he can land on stuff and throw the trident. And
he doesn't say "my man" once in the Aquaman movie.
I know. That's you could listen to that Blank Check episode.
I did. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking about it.
It's very funny. And then Wonder Woman's my last. Not to say that she's not great. Not to say that the movie's not great, but I just think like. I think like physical prowess just as good as the best or the worst like other character. I think like she's very strong, but I just don't like she's not that much stronger. She's not that much more of a fighter. I think she's not smarter than necessarily anybody else. I think that she. I
mean, I guess in the movie version, I'm making faces because I'm thinking of comic.
Yeah,
Diana,
no. We're talking about
movie version.
Yeah, we're talking about movies.
Yeah, okay.
There's nothing that necessarily puts her ahead of anybody else.
I'd probably put her ahead of the Flash, but
I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think for mine, I'm going to use like the original 7 lineup from the comics.
Martian Manhunter, Superman.
So I think like first most important is Superman in terms of his power, but also his leadership and his sort of connection to people, which is one thing that Martian Manhunter doesn't do well.
It's true.
So I'd put like Supes there. I'd probably say then Batman, then Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, Green Lantern. I think Green Lantern's at the bottom for me. And part of that is in that original version, at least, he was still weak against the color yellow, which is a stupid weakness. But and also because he has other obligations, right? Like he's a tough team member to depend on because he's basically like, when he's on the Justice League, he's like an off-duty cop who just like takes his gun and just like walks around the neighborhood. Like he has a job and that will always take priority. So like if you need him in a battle, but the Guardians need him somewhere else, he's going to be somewhere else. Like that, I think that makes him difficult to depend on. It's why I put him so far down on that list.
He has a secret identity he has to deal with as well. So that's a whole other.
I mean, lots of them do.
I'm just saying, like, he's got a lot of responsibilities. Plus, he has to do this whole secret identity thing.
Yeah. Plus, his movie sucks.
Amen.
Yeah, I think that's where I would go with that. So, thank you. Oh, right, and then there's this. Sorry, what was that, Josh?
Oh, I was just I was going to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
So we all three of us had Batman at either number 2 or in my case number 3. Pretty much making him indispensable from all the teams. Now I know there was the Elseworlds tale, the Nail, where we had the Justice League formed without Superman. Has there been a Justice League formed? Not, like through the 90s or one of those, but has there been a story about the Justice League forming without Batman?
I mean, there are Justice Leagues without Batman. Like, for example, Justice League Detroit was formed by Aquaman and Martian Manhunter and didn't have a Batman on it. And that was kind of a shitty league.
Right,
it was like Vibe and Gypsy and Steel and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, so we've seen, I guess I'm just kind of making a point that maybe it's been proven that Batman's a little more indispensable than we think he is.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point there. I mean, certainly if you're looking for comic book evidence, a Justice League can survive without a Batman, but certainly needs him at the beginning.
Yeah. But speaking of that, we should probably go into the second part of this question, which is if you could remove a character and replace them with whoever it is, who would that be replacement with, and who would you bring in?
Right. I might replace... using my lineup, I might replace Green Lantern with someone like Plastic Man, who can almost in a way simulate some of Green Lantern's powers by turning into different shapes and being different things, but is basically indestructible, doesn't have other obligations. He's maybe not as serious, doesn't take his job as seriously as Green Lantern, but I think a Plastic Man could largely fill the role of a Green Lantern.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Josh?
So again, based on my lineup, before the witching hour, I would have replaced Hot Girl with Zatanna. But now that we kind of have a magical connection there, I would probably take Cyborg out and replace him with Swamp Thing.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh.
Swamp Thing is a pretty powerful character to have on a team. Yeah, that's a big one. And, I mean, there's something interesting there about, like, saying, like, which is more pervasive, which is of better use to us? Technology, which is everywhere in the human world, or plants, which is everywhere.
That's true. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I like that. What about you?
I would say I'd get rid of Superman because I'd like to take away the most powerful character in my group because there's no Martian Manhunter.
Right, because you like an underdog.
Yes, and I do though, and I think that if it would make a very different film, but bring in Booster Gold.
You're replacing Superman with Booster Gold?
Yeah.
This is fucking outrageous.
And I want to see that dynamic between Batman and Booster Gold because I think that would be such an interesting, and it would make a very different, like almost Guardians of the Galaxy type.
I would love to see you walk into like a DC executive office and be like, we're going to do a Justice League movie. Hear me out. There's no Superman. Booster Gold is the leader.
I think that would make an interesting dynamic. I want to see those two go.
I agree. It would be interesting, but like, holy shit.
Hey, who thought Guardians of the Galaxy would make sense? But it did.
I guess.
I just think that like dynamic would make it a lot more funny, and it would make a more divisive relationship without it being sort of like. Like,
I mean, there is something to the idea of replacing the most selfless character with a character who, at least initially, is the most out for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I like that. I like creating that sort of infighting and stuff, which is really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Jesus.
All right. Well, let's go to the next question.
All right.
Cheers. Oh, it's a long one.
Hey, Richard. Hey, Doctor. This is Chad Bokelman from the Lantern Cast. Mark couldn't make it, but we wanted to be sure to send you a question for your 100th episode. Before I do that, though, we wanted to convey our thanks to you for being such big supporters of our show. Whether we're dropping a regular episode, or celebrating our 10th anniversary, or even launching a new podcast in the form of Creative Credit, you guys are constantly backing our every play, and it doesn't go unappreciated. But let me now take time to appreciate you. The Dr. DC podcast is one of my favorite podcasts, bar none. I may know almost as much about the DCU as the Doctor himself, but I still enjoy listening to your banter, your personal thoughts on various DC topics, and even your sometimes inane skits. It's my favorite thing to do each Wednesday, other than read the new comics out that day, of course. Now, I often like to call myself the Doctor's Forge, asking him the questions that make him sit back, sigh, stare off into the middle distance, and summon his will to continue doing the show in the first place. I won't do that this time. I'll give you a break. But I did have a sincere question that hopefully will garner some introspection and cause you to dig deep into the DCU at large for the listeners at home. Now, as we know, in the beginning, the JSA and JLA were separated by the multiverse, Earth 2 and Earth 1. Following the events of the crisis, everything was as it should have been, with one timeline and one history. But which version do you prefer? The division of teams by temporal boundaries, or the JSA inspiring the future generation of heroes that came after them? And do me a favor, dig deep. Think of the characters and concepts that followed these events, particularly the often celebrated All-Star Squadron and Infinity Inc. series, or even the quote-unquote new JSA, made up of a combination of the old guard training the new children of their friends and families. Would the DCU be too crowded if they shared a timeline? Or does a division of universes provide infinite storytelling alleys to go down? Which is better? Why? And, well, does it even matter? Congratulations on your 100th episode, guys. I can't wait to listen to it. Keep doing you, and I'll keep listening.
Don't tell me what to do.
Chad, does your back hurt from congratulating yourself?
No, that was nice.
I know.
That was
I just
a nice message.
I like making fun of him. They appreciate it.
So the bulk of this question,
Plebeians.
Jesus,
That was your line first.
no,
You said it first. I have recorded.
no, you don't.
I do.
There's no evidence.
Go back to the annual.
Don't listen to any past episodes. So the heart of this question is, what do you prefer? The pre-crisis, like Justice Society on a totally different Earth, or the post-crisis that they were like the first generation sort of superheroes, and then the Justice League are sort of like their mentees or their successors? Yeah, either you or Josh.
Josh, do you have an opinion on this?
I like having them as the mentors.
Yeah.
You know, I like that they came beforehand. I like that, you know, we have the modern Justice League that's drawing their inspiration from these heroes. You know, I don't really know why. I just think that leads to more neat stories and gives more opportunities for crossovers between the two.
I kind of agree with
and
you.
to see more of that interaction.
Well, and, you know, there's stuff like Wildcat being like a feature in the training of characters like Batman and Black Canary and things like that. And, you know, or like how Alan Scott's kids, you know, Jade and Obsidian, they become sort of important characters in their own right and as members of like Infinity Inc. or things like that.
Well, without Jay Garrick, there is no Flash family. I mean, Jay Garrick is kind of the patriarch of that whole lineage.
That's true. I mean, like, let's leave aside the fact that Wally West has had a bit of a rough go since 2011. But yeah, something has been missing from the Flash family. We got a little hint of it in the Button crossover, but we're waiting for basically the return of Jay Garrick.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to straddle the fence a little bit on this one. I'm going to say that provided that Rebirth fulfills the promises we think that it is making, I actually think where we're at right now is the right balance, where we'll get a timeline that has a restored Justice Society as the first generation with Justice League following, but also Earth 2 features younger versions of those Justice Society characters in their own adventures, in their own world and timeline that doesn't have to sort of adhere to anything. You know, like those Earth 2 series, you know, World's End wasn't great. Earth 2 Society was kind of interesting, but I don't know that it ever fully found its footing. And the original Earth 2 series was pretty good. Mm-hmm. But I like the idea of that both can sort of exist concurrently, that we have this Earth 2 with younger versions of sort of isolated Justice Society members. And then on the Prime continuity, we'll get that sort of like mentor relationship. I think it's important in the Prime continuity to have them there, though, because like they're even things that have stayed in continuity. For example, Dream is Daniel Hall. Like we just saw Dream in Dark Knight's Metal, but that's Daniel Hall. That's the son of Hector Hall and Lita Trevor, who are the children of Justice Society members, you know, Hawkman and Hawkgirl and the original Wonder Woman and things like that. Like there's there are already like lines being drawn to a previous generation that are in the current continuity of things that just happened that are being constantly referenced. So like hopefully Doomsday Clock and DC Rebirth will finally deliver on that promise of restoring the Justice Society, because those things are already in there. There are characters with legacies. And yeah, like you said, Josh, I mean, Jay Garrick is such like an important part of the Flash family. He's grandpa, basically. Like, you know, like you need grandpa. It's,
Yeah.
I think I agree. I don't think it feels right otherwise, which is funny because that wasn't what it was originally. But that New Earth, that like 1985 onward, really did a lot of work in terms of setting up how much those older characters meant to younger ones. Or fuck, like the Starman legacy. I mean, how many Starmen are there? There's a Starman currently in Scott Snyder's Justice League. And we know that Stargirl exists. She was in the New 52 and things like that. So, you know, where is that legacy? Where's the original, you know, Star Spangled Kid and the original Starman, you know, for both of those to then come down to Courtney Whitmore, to Stargirl. So I think because some of those things are already in the Prime continuity, we really need them like back in that sort of mentor, like Greatest Generation kind of role.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out following Doomsday Clock. I mean, we have teases of Johnny Thunder and teases of, like you said, Jay Garrick. So we have teases of some of these old school Justice Society members that are coming back, and I would love to see them come back and take those mantles back up.
Yeah, there are such long lineages for characters like Flash and Green Lantern, even Dr. Fate, that I think it would be a shame not to have them in there. I think that is something that's been missing in the New 52 and in Rebirth thus far. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go to the next question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Lantern Cast.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, this is Dr. DC Senior. My question is, why do all the superheroes defend just their city? Cities seem to exist in isolation from their country, from the world. Criminals just want to take over the city. Heroes just want to defend their city. Why is the city the principal unit of engagement between heroes and villains? Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Dr. DC Senior.
Oh, yeah. Really stocking this whole thing full of family members.
Well, you know, the pool of listeners is pretty small.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. That is kind of a phenomenon in comic books, right? The city being the battleground. I mean, every once in a while there's a big like worldwide invasion or something, but he's right. It is a lot of that. Like, do you have any thoughts on why that might be?
I mean, without that, we couldn't have such quality lines as "You have failed this city."
Oh, Josh.
Nice.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, certainly it makes sense, I think, for Oliver Queen, since you brought him up, because he's sort of like a, you know, in the streets, like fighting for the little guy kind of hero. More so in the comics than in the show, but there's a certain degree of sense that it makes there. I mean, Richard, did it ever strike you as weird that like Superman, this like super powerful alien, that a lot of his adventures are just like stopping crime in Metropolis?
Yeah, I do always find that really interesting. And I don't know if that's because they're aware of people in other areas. And so they're like, this is my territory. Like,
right.
Stay off the west side. But I do wonder.
We know he stays out of Suicide Slum.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, yuck.
Black Lightning's territory.
Black Lightning.
Jefferson, this is the part of Metropolis Superman won't save.
Yo, that's great. And so, yeah, I think I feel, that's something that's always kind of perplexed me, but it's a thing that I'm just like, well, that's just the way it is.
I think for me, there are some characters where it makes sense, like Oliver Queen or like Batman or things like that, you know, because a lot of Batman's villains are like, they're crooks. Even if they have powers, they're just like, they're robbers and like things like that. You know, like Clayface isn't going to take over the world, right? He's just kind of like pulling heists and fraud and shit like that. So it kind of makes sense to contain that in the city. Same with characters like the Penguin, who's like a mob boss or whatever. I think it only feels weird to me with a character like something like Green Lantern, who's like a cosmic cop.
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah, because he's like a cosmic cop, but when he's on Earth, he's like, no, Coast City is my turf. It's like kind of silly.
Right. I mean, I guess I never really thought about it until now, but it is weird that you have this dude that patrols an entire sector of the galaxy, and when he comes to Earth, there's only one city that matters.
Yeah.
That makes sense, right? But also, too, on the flip side of that, look at somebody like Black Adam. You know, he has a little bit bigger than a city, but he has Kandak, and that is his territory, and he protects it.
Yep.
But they've done that in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. And there are a couple of characters like that too. You know, I think you can make the argument for like Geoforce in Markovia is also sort of a character that's relatively regional.
And then like August General and Irons in China.
Well, yeah, and there's the Great 10 in China, and now the Justice League of China, since that sort of new Superman series. Yeah, there are a couple of sort of like regional groups and things like that. I guess maybe the point is that like not everything is world ending. So like, of course, they're not just going to not be superheroes until the planet gets invaded. There's a certain amount of sense in terms of the hero side of it in stopping crimes in their immediate vicinity. For the villains, yeah, I think generally speaking, the ones that have the sort of city aspirations are the ones that couldn't possibly take over the world. They're people like, they're crooks. They're, or even like in the case of Luthor, he's not necessarily taking over the world. He just wants Metropolis he just wants to be the savior of Metropolis. Like he's the guy that built all the buildings. He just wants to be the big dick in the room, basically. Like, I don't know. It makes a certain amount of sense, but when you do put it that way, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, that they're sort of contained to little city pockets.
All right. Do you want to move forward?
Let's do it.
All right. All right. Let's go to the next question.
Hey guys, it's Matt Poulter calling from the
Chicken Matty
Nolan Batman franchise episode. First off, congratulations on the 100 episodes. That's awesome, and you guys totally deserve it. And here's to 100 more. My question for you guys is there a DC franchise that you would love to see sort of an adaptation of on movies or TV or something like that, but you know there's 100% chance it'll never happen? And if so, why? All right, cheers, guys. Bye.
Booster Gold.
Okay, but is there like a particular like story or something like that?
I mean, the one that I initially pitched.
Oh yeah.
I think that would be the ideal Booster Gold story. But no, I mean, otherwise. I love an underdog.
Sure.
And it's a character that I've been drawn to. My other choice would be obviously Gnort.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've definitely hit the nail on the head.
That would be a funny
100%. It will
show.
Never happen. Yeah. Sort of range. Yeah. Josh, what about you? What's the sort of like Hail Mary like DC franchise you would want to see that you know isn't going to get a shot?
The Question.
Ooh. Now, which version? Do you want the Vic Sage, like the original Question, or do you want like Renee Montoya?
I kind of want Renee Montoya, but I want to see it as her trying to balance being the Question and still being a detective.
Right, like someone who's meant to uphold the law while simultaneously breaking it.
Basically, yeah. Like going through in those cases that she can't solve as a detective, she finds herself having to resort more and more to the Question. And, you know, at some point she encounters Vic Sage.
Sure.
Like, I think that'd be a cool story.
Yeah. Now, I wonder how they're going to use Renee Montoya in Birds of Prey, because she is cast for that Birds of Prey movie that just started production just today, I think. I'm curious to know, like, is she going to be the Question in that movie, or is she just Detective Renee Montoya, or, you know, are we getting like the seeds of that, or is she just in for a bit of fan service as opposed to becoming like an actual sort of hero, like the question. I'd be curious to know where they're going with that one.
Well, my curiosity is more if with her being cast in that, does that mean we're not going to get her for Batwoman? Because her and Kate Kane have a history.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And DC's sort of famously kind of weird about characters existing in movies and on TV.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that actually. And isn't Maggie Sawyer on Supergirl? So even like the other Batwoman sort of love interest is spoken for somewhere, right?
She was. She was through the first season and a half or 2 seasons, and then she left the show.
Huh.
Well, she left the show right around the time, right before they announced, or the rumors started coming out about Batwoman. So maybe?
Interesting. That's a good point. I actually hadn't even thought of that. That's right. There's a lot of unanswered questions with that Batwoman series. Yeah. Oh, shit. I hadn't even thought of that. Right. So.
But speaking of Hail Mary, who would have ever thought we were getting a Batwoman series?
Amen, yeah.
Totally. Right. And that's kind of the fun thing with this question is that like, there are things we can name, but I think now more than ever is like when even the most outlandish of ideas has the most potential to happen. Like, I don't think it's ever been more likely for some things to happen than now. Yeah, I mean, for me, I suspect just due to the nature of the powers and things like that. I know it's on TV, but I'm guess talking specifically movies. I really want like a Martian Manhunter story. I want to see him on Mars. I want some of the weird crap. I want like Jem, Son of Saturn. I want the white Martians and the green Martians. I want the burning, or, you know, like I'd like to see the actual, like him and Ma'alafa'ak and like Hronmir's curse. And I'd like to see Dr. Urdell and like some of these bits of Martian Manhunter's story that have kind of been forgotten or sort of swept aside. And just a movie sort of focusing on him, basically like the opposite of a Man of Steel, right? Man of Steel was about like, us encountering an alien. I would want a Martian Manhunter movie to be about him encountering us, and trying to, like, not necessarily like comedically, like the fish out of water thing, but something maybe more dramatic about like not understanding how things work, or, you know, dealing with the meets instantly has a heart attack and dies, or stuff like that. Like I would love almost like an Arrival style Martian Manhunter kind of movie.
Ooh, I love that idea.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Something like that, I think, is what I'd want.
That would be fucking rad.
But I doubt it would like assert that science and magic both exist but are different. So it would be neat to see someone who Batman comics, Superman comics. Timeline, basically.